Hi again. It's Chuck Tekia, the author of The Hidden Kingdom, United States and Biblical Prophecy, the meaning of September 11th. And I want to show you, this is the original manuscript. This copy, just like this, is in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. and has been there since February of 1999. And the reason why I rushed to publish it before 2000 was because after I had a great experience with charismatic Catholics, Spirit-filled Catholics, in 1973, as a young adult, unmarried. My girlfriend's cousin was a nun, or a novice nun, who left to get married, and she invited us on a retreat, which we tricked us into it by saying it was a commune she was going to, and we were hippies, and we used to hang out in a commune. The spirit of Inn of the Spirit. No, that was the name of the retreat house, strangely enough. But it was in Warwick, Massachusetts, and the rock group was called Spirit and Flesh. And there were stickers all over the place in the Northeast of these people that were at this commune. So anyway, we went, and I had tremendous experiences that made me believe that Jesus was the Son of God and the Savior who sent His Spirit into the world after He died, all that stuff, which I never believed because I was raised atheist. And soon after that, I actually began to be converted by dreams and visions that I had in the privacy of my own bedroom, and never told anybody about it because it would scare me to death, and they'd think I was crazy. At least I thought they thought I would think I was crazy. At least me, the atheist, who would argue them all into a corner when they tried to convert me. All my Catholic friends. Strangely enough, we were drinking, and we were teenagers in high school. We were drinking every night in the summertime. But on Saturday, all of these Catholic teenage kids who were going to get drunk that night would go stand on line in front of their church, like it was a big opening of a movie, big long line for people to go to confession so they could go to Mass the next day. But not me. Well, then I got religion and started getting messages in my inner spirit from God, things that, mostly things that were conventional Christian beliefs I began to believe because I was convinced they were true. One night I had a disturbing nightmare that woke me up, and as I laid in my bedroom in my house, my parents' house in Amityville, where I first started fishing, I'm a commercial fisherman, started to clam in those days. As I lay there, closed my eyes to go back to sleep, suddenly it was like a foggy vision. I couldn't see the faces clearly, but I knew I was like looking up at the face of Jesus, who was, and him and several of the apostles were sitting around a stone table, sitting on the floor, having a meal. And this was the scene of the Last Supper, is what it appeared to me. And he said these words: "All of these things must come to pass before 2,000 of their years are fulfilled." And then the vision was over. And I sat up in bed shaking, filled with, my hair stood on end, very spiritual moment. I got up and kneeled next to my bed, began to pray, and I saw an image which I identified as the Holy Mother, Virgin Mother Mary, only a very simple woman, carrying the yoke across her shoulders, carrying water. And she passed by me, and her face, I didn't see the features, it was just pure spirit in her face, pure spirit and goodwill and love I could feel as it passed by me. And I always kept that, believed something, he was coming back before 2,000 of our years would pass. Now, I thought it was probably, because it was 1973, so we had another 25 years or so, because then it was the year 2000. But then I thought, well, he was about 30 years old at the time that he died, so this was the Last Supper, so maybe it's 2030. But I didn't know which was which. And one of my first jobs when I got married, I actually got married, when I had the job, I was a custodian, a sexton as they called it, in a Catholic church, Garden City, New York. And there were two beautiful spiritual women that lived in the rectory and took care of the house, the household, housekeepers. And this one woman, her name was Mary, sweet woman. She had to be in her 70s, but she just had the spirit of a very young child. And I was looking out the window one day, and there were thunderstorms coming, and she said, as a child, I was afraid of thunderstorms. Until one day, I was talking to a novice nun, because I lived on a farm in Pennsylvania, she said, and her father would invite the nuns for dinner on Sunday nights. And this one Sunday night, a young novice nun came to her and said that she had had a vision of Jesus and Mary in a thunderhead, and that they spoke to her and said that the world would never write the number 2000. And right away my hair stood on end. It was like, here's my confirmation, it's coming before 2000. And then with the whole thing about Y2K, as 2000 approached, you know, it seemed like maybe the world was going to end anyway, no matter what. So I rushed to finish writing this. And I called it The Hidden Kingdom, United States and Biblical Prophecy, a rethinking of the gospel. Because it had nothing to do with 9/11. 9/11 hadn't happened yet. Except the World Trade Center had been attacked once before in 1993. And my thoughts that as the smoke rose over that tower and over the city, I thought, well, maybe this is the fulfillment of Revelations 18, because there's the center of world trade, and it made me focus on that. And I'm not quite sure if I had written it, added this before, well, it's in this version, so I'll get it here. But I'm not sure if I had written it before or after the events in 1993. Here it is. But it was before, certainly before it happened, because it's in Library of Congress. This is in the Library of Congress. It has been here since February of 1999. And I'll read the last paragraph. This woman, symbolizing the great latter-day center of world commerce and political power, is described as being situated upon many waters, holding a golden cup in her hand in control of a horned, multi-headed Leviathan. One need only travel the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway down towards the Verrazano Bridge to see an uncanny physical rendition of this symbolic description. Don't see it like this anymore because the World Trade Center isn't there anymore. There on a tiny island, actually there is a World Trade Center, but instead of two horns it's one. But listen, they're on a tiny island that is at the confluence of three rivers in the most famous seaport harbor in the world stands a huge image of a woman holding a flaming cup in her hand. She stands facing, in a gesture of hypnotic command, the huge monolithic twin towers of the World Trade Center that rise like the most prominent serpentine heads of a half-submerged, many-headed and horned beast that is island Manhattan, with its skyline at the apex of history's greatest center of financial and political influence, that is the city of New York. And then it happened. A couple of years later, after I had copyrighted this. So I decided to add forward and afterward and just publish the original manuscript as it sits right here. Because it had predicted or had shown that 9/11 was a fulfillment of, and it was, we watched it, my kids and I watched it happen. I pulled this out, page of this, I printed it out, and then we pulled out the Bible and looked at Revelation chapter 18 and watched the whole thing happen. Line after line, in chronological order, just as it was written in books. And my four kids, well actually three kids, my one daughter wasn't there, she was away at college. They weren't crazy Christians like I was. They believed, I guess, and my son went to Catholic school, but, you know, he just didn't really believe like that. He didn't read the Bible and stuff, so none of them did. But they were amazed, teary-eyed. My son called his friend up, said it's in the Bible, and then his friend said, well, are you a crazy Christian now? I said, but it's in there, look at it. My daughter, after it was over, after, it was just a smoky mess, she looked at me. My oldest daughter, my second oldest daughter, was now a PhD economist working on an institute on Wall Street, director of an institute on Wall Street. Said to me, "What's going to happen now, Daddy?" And I didn't know what to say, except I said, and this was 2001. The United States was still at the pinnacle of its financial and political power. 2008, the collapse hadn't happened. The failed wars in the Middle East hadn't happened. The Trump administration, with all the world now looking to other places for their leadership because Trump is just myopically looking at the United States and not caring about what happens in the rest of the world. Whatever you politically think about Trump, that's what's happening. And the dictators are rising, and the world is looking to them to support now. Putin may be taking over the world, and China may be taking over the world, and the two of those might go to war. But who knows what's going to happen? But the decline of the influence of the United States is happening. The decline of its financial leadership, political leadership in the world, is happening, just as it's predicted. That the many-headed and horned beast that was being suppressed by the woman, great Babylon, the harlot, would be thrown off, and they would rise up. And so, just want to read just one thing from the Old Testament here, where blind Jacob is dying, and Joseph has brought his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. The beautiful scene where he kneels down behind them, and Manasseh is on the right hand of Jacob, and Ephraim is on the left hand, because Manasseh is the oldest. He's going to get the greater part of the blessing, the birthright blessing of the promised land. This great multitude of nations, of peoples, a company of nations is going to arise in the world in the end days, is going to come upon the children of Joseph, mostly on, Joseph thought, on Manasseh. But while Joseph's got his head to the ground, Jacob crosses his hands and puts his right hand on the younger son Ephraim. And then he blesses him and says, "May the God in whose ways my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, and the God who has been my shepherd from my birth to this day, the angel has delivered me from all harm, bless these boys, that in them my name be recalled, the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and they may become teeming multitudes upon the earth." And when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on Ephraim's head, this seemed wrong to him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh, saying, "This is not right, father. The other one is the firstborn. Lay your right hand on his head." But his father resisted. "I know it, son," he said. "I know. That one too shall become a tribe, and he too shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall surpass him, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." So when he blessed them that day, "By you shall the people of Israel pronounce blessings. May they say, God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." And he placed Ephraim before Manasseh. Now, Ephraim and Manasseh are just mythological terms. We don't know who those people are for sure. They were taken captive in Assyria, and they disappeared. You look it up in an encyclopedia, and it will say that they were assimilated into the Assyrian melting pot. But we know that those people from that area migrated all over the earth. And strangely enough, it's right by the Caucasus Mountains, right by the land of Armenia, which one of the first anthropologists came along and said, he studied people, and he said the people who have the features that most typify the white race came from this area. And that's why white people are called Caucasians. Now, I'm not a white supremacist at all. I'm just saying that these are the people that had these blessings on them to become the greatest nation politically, morally, spiritually, financially, blessed with all manner of natural resources as predicted by Moses, as prophesied by Moses. It happened. It happened to us. And these words, multitude of nations, as it is translated in the New American Bible, the word multitude is translated, the literal translation is fullness, and the word for nations is goyim. The Hebrew word for multitude is a word, I looked it up, I forgot what it is. Kaham, or something like that. But it means fullness, and it relates to a sheep pen that's overflowing, a fullness. And goyim is the word for nations throughout the Old Testament, but it's also the word Gentiles, fullness of the Gentiles. Now in Romans 11:25, Paul says, I tell you a great mystery, that these things will not happen until comes the fullness of the Gentiles. Here's Romans. I'll do this quick. I don't want to use up too much of this time here. Should have had this. Romans 4, Romans 9, Romans 10, Romans 11:25. I do not want you to be unaware of this great mystery, brothers, so that you will not become wise in your own estimation. A hardening has come upon Israel in part, until the full number of the Gentiles comes in. And this, all Israel will be saved, as it is written. The deliverer will come out of Zion. He will turn away godlessness from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Well, it says, it's translated here, full number of the Gentiles, because they assumed that's what he was talking about. But the term, the original, the translation in the King James Version is fullness of the Gentiles, which is exactly the prediction upon Ephraim's head. He shall become fullness of the Gentiles. There's a theme in this book that I recognized when I first read it that no one was talking about. They talk about it in general like it's an old myth that nobody really pays attention to because it's all it's all symbolic. It's not real. But it's real. It's real that these people were going to become the most important people on earth. And every peoples, if you go back into the Indian tribes, you go back into all the tribal peoples when they had their mythology, when they had their prophecies, that each Indian tribe was a people and everybody else was everybody else. They were the humans, and they were one day going to rule the earth. Well, this one is the winner. And we're the winners. The promises came upon us. But a promise fulfilled isn't a promise anymore. We don't have the promise on us anymore. It becomes a responsibility. And we have filled our responsibilities up until now. And now we're poisoning the earth with our greed and our corruption. And everybody recognizes it. We're no longer leading the world. So other leaders are rising to take over. That's what's predicted to happen. And it's happening. So like I said in the earlier video, it's time to get ready. Because it wasn't the year 2000 when the Lord was coming. I have the assurance in myself. I can't convince you of what I saw. And it doesn't matter because all of the other stuff is there. It's happening. We only have another 10 years left, 10, 12 years left. So it's time to get ready. Get ready for the kingdom. Get ready in yourself. Don't try and make the world around you the kingdom. That's selfish. Because you just want to feel comfortable here. We're not here to feel comfortable. We're here to actually feel uncomfortable. Because when we're being made uncomfortable, we're not to fight back. Turn the other cheek. Go the second mile. Love your enemies. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's all stuff that's impossible to do continually. It's just impossible because it's too much pressure. It's too much pain. So you agree, you assent to it, like you assent to the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence to become a citizen. To become a citizen of the kingdom, you must assent to the Lord being the Lord and His law being the law. But He's not like a man. It's like men who make laws that are separate from themselves. They write them down on a piece of paper and put them over there. Say, there's the law that we all have to follow. God is His own law. He is the one. He's the law. And you assent. It's like in The Godfather. You kiss his ring. You assent. He is the authority. And you trust Him to be merciful, to forgive your sins, to forgive your failings. And our failings are the biggest failing. Just read Rene Girard. Tough to read sometimes. His later works. The Scapegoat is a good one. That we all have our scapegoats, because, and Carl Jung recognized this himself. Projection is the biggest sin. We project the dark side of ourselves. We don't want to recognize it, and we don't agree to it. We don't make friends with our own dark side. So we see it in other people, project it on them and condemn them, and say, at least I'm not as bad as they are, when what you're just seeing on them is your own inside. Agree to stop doing that, or to try to stop doing that. Go through the 12 steps, the middle steps, 4 through 10. You look at your own shortcomings and agree that they're there, and then agree to help God, ask God to help you to have them removed. It's a process. It's not perfection. So anyway, that's enough preaching from me. If you want to comment, please do. I'd love to hear it. Thanks a lot. Till next time.